Education meeting. We'll begin by indicating who is here. Julie.
Julie Jackson.
Kim Chandler.
Connie Burgess.
Chris Wynn.
Karen Winder.
Clark Nelson.
Todd Hauer.
Ben Horsley.
And Nicole McDermott. We are happy to have you all here. We're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to invite Doug Larson to come down and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Invite all to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance after me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Give me 1 second. I apologize. I need to pull up my list. All right, we'd like to recognize, welcome everybody who's here, but we'd like to recognize any special guests that we have here. PTA. Thank you for coming.
I'm Liz Shellham. I'm Region 5 PTA Advocacy.
Thanks for being here, Liz. GA.
Michelle Jones, President. David Page, Board Member.
Welcome. Granted Office Professionals. Middle Managers. Or GESPA. Granted Education Foundation. I didn't see anybody here tonight, did I? Elected officials. And any administrators that are here. I know Jen is out in the hall. Jen Johnson. Welcome. We are happy to have you guys here. Thank you for being here with us. All right, we're going to go ahead and turn the time over to Luke, who will introduce our reverends.
And I'll turn it over to Jen Christensen, who will introduce her madrigals.
Okay, we'd like all of you to come down and listen to our incredible Olympus High Madrigals, directed by the beautiful and talented Mrs. Erin Tall, our wonderful choir director. This song is called Time by Jennifer Lucy Cook, and I'm just going to read a little paragraph about this. So, time, like money or borders, between one country and another is one of those funny human-made concepts that dictate our lives but are fundamentally meaningless if we didn't all agree to go along with it. And yet we experience aging, the changing of seasons, and growth undeniably. The line between time's reality and its invention is blurry, and there was no better way I could think of to depict that than by writing a repeating lyric that erodes as the piece unfolds. As lyrics disappear, phrases take on new meaning, like the way a 30th birthday differs from a 5th birthday, or how old memories can appear sharper than yesterday's. We lose time when we try to keep it. We spend time as we try to save it. And since it insists upon eluding us, we can only notice that the fact that time has been winking at us all along. This wit, this relentlessness, and this freedom is the spirit behind time, and this piece is my way of winking back.
If you can't understand every word, we'll be happy to do it all over again, right? It's a very fast song, so we're going to get this, all right.
Time, you can spend it. When you spend it, then you're running out of time. You can save it, but to save it is to take a little time. In a minute, when you're in it, can you feel the passing time? It's an illusion, there's confusion when they tell you now it's time to get older, time to work and time to waste, and there's no time left to hold or time to tell them how you feel while there's no time. 3, 2, 1, 11:30, 2 a.m. and dinner time. Now to kill, I said I will, and still it flies no time. You're running out of time, you can save, but to save it takes some time. In a minute, you're in it. Feel passing time is an illusion, confusion. They tell you now it's time to get older, to work, time to hold, time to tell him. While there's still time, 3 to 11, 2 a.m., dinner time, not to kill, said I will, still it flies all time. Time you can, when you're running out of spigot, take a little time, minute. Can you feel passing is an illusion? They tell you to get older, work, waste, there's no holder. Tell him, feel there's time, 1:30, dinner time, kill, will still fly. Oh, time, you can spend it. When you spend it, then you're running out of time. You can save it, but to save it is to take a little time. In a minute, when you're in it, can you feel the passing time? They say time to get older, time to work, and time to waste, and there's no time left to hold, and time to tell it how you feel. While there's still time, 3 to 1, 11:30, 2 a.m. and dinner time. As you kill, I said I will, and still it flies, will fly, fly, fly on time.
So we don't need to do it again. Thank you.
That was amazing. Seriously, guys, thank you so much. So, thanks for spending the time.
Do we have any parents from the Olympus High crowd here? We just wanted to recognize you if you were here. But. All right, we are going to go ahead and move on to our Good News Minute. We'll start with Clark.
I'll defer my time this evening.
Karen?
I just want to give special thanks. I had a lot of people reach out to me during my recovery from my surgery from the various schools, and so that meant a lot. Just wanted to give my thanks there. Also, I don't know, well, this starts out not being a good news minute, but in our community out in West Valley, we had a tragedy with a family. But I did want to report on the miracle. The good news is that the surviving son, Shaw Ray, who attends Granger High, is making a miraculous recovery and is soon to be released from the hospital. And it really warmed my heart to see that yesterday a lot of the Granger High's administration and faculty and staff made a visit to the hospital to be able to give him a big Granger blanket, and they'd all pulled together some money for some lovely headphones for Shaw. And so I just wanted to share the good news that he is recovering miraculously, really, from what he's had to endure so far. And of course, his road forward is going to be pretty difficult, dealing with all the trauma that he's experienced lately. But just wanted to share the Good News Minute, and thanks to our community, especially West Valley, for the thoughts and prayers that have gone out to him and his support family.
I just have two things. The first one is going to come up on our agenda. It's about Hunter High's production of Moana Jr. And I was very, very moved by their performance. It was wonderful, and we'll hear more about it, I think, when we do our, is it on the next? Next recognition, yes, so thank you. But thank you, Hunter High. The other thing I just want to mention is something near and dear to my heart, the Cypress Pirate Pantry. Our SBOs every year do a See the Cause. They lead an effort to fill the pantry for the year, and they're always very successful, and it's a lot of community support. They go out and go to our local grocery stores and do different competitions, I guess it is, with the classes, and I just really appreciate their efforts to lead that. It's a big lift in a hard time of school year where they're trying to get their grades in, and those SBOs really do a great job to fill our local pantry, and I just want to recognize their efforts and thank them.
Thanks, Chris. Honey?
I just hope everyone had a good 2-week vacation. I certainly enjoyed it, and hopefully everyone and the teachers enjoyed having that extra day yesterday so that they could prepare for students today. So thanks for having that happen.
So it's a new year, and typically this is a time for goals. I wanted to say something slightly different today and instead suggest a goal for our public, perhaps. Earlier today, we had 3 of our board members take their oaths of office for their new terms that are just beginning. I didn't do that this evening, but I did 2 years ago, along with the other 3 who didn't do it tonight with me. So I just wanted to restate that for those who weren't here earlier to hear it. Each board member solemnly swears that they will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Utah, and that they will discharge the duties of their office with fidelity. So my suggested goal for the public for this year is to remain aware of that oath of office that is made by each one of us up here and hold us to it throughout the coming year and beyond. And if you see that that's not happening, call us out on it. We are here to represent our constituents. And so that would be my challenge, a goal for everybody else. And for myself, obviously, to uphold that as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Julie?
There's so much going on in our schools right now. I'm just gonna say the 2 things that are top of mind. I've been very excited about all the science fairs going on right now. And if you get the opportunity to be a science fair judge, you should do it, because it is critical thinking in action. It is witnessing our kids being creative and discovering stuff and figuring out how to think. And I just think it is phenomenal. And I also love it because it's this perfect intersection of where teachers and parents come together, because the teachers do the pedagogical part and the parents do the organizational part, but they all come together on that. And I've just been it's just scintillating to be in the room and see all these kids talk about what they learned that they're so excited about. And the other thing I wanted to say is that I have learned about a new exciting, well, it's not new, but it's new that I'm discovering, and that is these little service organizations that are occurring in our schools. And I've been finding that all I have to do is ask a school, do you have some students who would be willing to do some service? Because I need a little service. And these kids show up and get these jobs done that are incredible and that are gonna benefit our community. Today I was at lunch at Common Elementary, and a group of kids helped me make signs for our USBA conference. We're going to have a place where people can take their photo with signs that say things like education for all, or learners today, leaders tomorrow, things that support public education. And these kids are making these signs very meticulously, very carefully, because they know that these are messages for leaders who are going to be supporting their teachers and their education. And it was just really beautiful to see them not looking at it as an art project, but as something like with purpose. It was like their way to sit, have their voice be heard. And it was just really exciting. And I think those are untapped. I think our kids absolutely are so talented and they love to serve. And I think I'm going to be doing a lot more of utilizing those guys because there's a lot of goodness there.
Thanks, Julie. I want to give a shout out to Hunter High United Theater and particularly Miss Chelsea Parks, who has worked her butt off to figure out how to do this and she was telling us her plan coming up and how they're going to tweak it just a little bit to make it work better for her as well as better for the kids. And just to put that much, it's heart and soul. And I appreciate what you guys do for those kids. Thanks for everybody who worked so hard for holiday concerts. I know it was a end of quarter as well and as end of semester, and then all the holiday concerts together. A lot of work for those teachers and for those kiddos. I do want to pass on, I got several emails and wanted to pass on to the board that we did have teachers say thank you for the day yesterday. I think that was a good comeback for those teachers. They needed that, and they needed to have the time to plan and to make sure they were ready for the semester. And I also just want to, I have gotten, because it's end of semester, I assume this is with the civics class in high school, but I know we all get these letters from our kiddos in high school who are in these classes. And I got one, and I locked myself out of my email so I couldn't answer him, but I will. But he wrote me, and it was about cell phones, and I was like, oh no, what's it going to say? And it was the best email. He said, thank you for passing this. Please continue to support this because I know I am doing better in school and I see my fellow students doing better in school because of this. I'm a senior. I wish this had happened earlier. And I was like, wow. So props to those teachers who have them write those things and have them think about something to write to their elected officials, but also thanks for that, those students who do that, because I love hearing those students say those things. So.
And props to those teachers who are enforcing the cell phone policy.
Yes, that too. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to recognitions. We'll invite Luke back up, and he will introduce our recognitions.
And I will turn it over to Jennifer Johnson for our Hunter High Unified Theater recognition.
As she makes her way up, I'd like to do a little bit of an introduction as well. I had the opportunity with our board leadership to visit and participate in the production of Moana Jr. at Hunter High School. And I have to tell you that I cry all the time, so I apologize, but that was truly one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my entire life. It was incredible. And I tell people about it all the time because what you did there was just so amazing. And that's why I've asked you to come here tonight, is because I needed people to know and understand how much we value inclusion and of these wonderful students and the things that they can accomplish and do. These are valued members of our community and our student body. And that was just such an amazing thing. So thank you so much.
I'm Jen Johnson. I'm the principal at Hunter High this year, and I am excited to be able to introduce my fabulous teacher, Chelsea Parks. And I'm really going to let her explain our program and explain what our kids do, but to give you a little bit of perspective. Like most high schools, we do a musical for our student body in the fall, which we say in the fall, but we know that it really starts in May the year before, and then all summer, and then they perform in November. And so keep in mind that Ms. Parks put on a full school production of The Music Man at our school in November, and then literally within the next month turned around and put on another production with another whole group of students and another musical. So you think about that time frame and you think about what she does. So literally, thank you for yesterday. Give us a few more of those so we can take care of our teachers, right? So I just get to bask in the wonderfulness and not have to do all the work that they do. But Ben, you said it, Chris, you alluded to it, Nicole, there's no other word but magical. This was my first experience, obviously being at Hunter this year, brand new, and watching this performance and sitting in the audience, and it literally takes your breath away. Like, you have this moment where you go, this is why I have dedicated my entire life to education. This right here, like this moment on stage with our kids, this is why. This is why I get up every day and fight and fight and fight for education and fight for our kids, because this is what we do. So I will take zero credit other than I adore you all, and I can't, right, imagine being in a school without all of you. But I am going to turn the time over to Chelsea Parks, who is our incredible theater teacher at Hunter High. Let her tell you more about the program, and just from the bottom of my heart, Chelsea, you are so appreciated and loved.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Parks. And just to give you a little bit of context, how this program started is basically a few years ago, I would sometimes have kids with special needs audition for the musical, and I knew that it was too hard in various ways, too taxing, the time commitment. So I thought, well, what can I do? So I went to our amazing special education department. We have the most amazing special ed teachers and paraeducators. And I said, I have this crazy idea. And they said, okay. And then I thought, I don't know what I'm doing. So I just did it anyway. So I always viewed it as just putting on a show. I'm in my 19th year of teaching. I've directed multiple productions. But what I decided needed to happen with the support of the special education department and our amazing performing arts department is the friendships that are created. So I talked to my theater kids, my students, and I asked them to be a part of this. And I said, I need you to come and make friends. And so I start every year, and I kind of observe and I watch the students, and then I talk with all the students, and then we create friend groups, and we have group leaders. And the group leaders help our amazing students with special needs shine. My goal is to have them be in the spotlight. Like our amazing special needs students, they're the ones in the spotlight. They're the ones who get the spotlight on them. And so that's what inspired it. I'm grateful we've been able to do it for a few years. I'm grateful we're able to switch the time of year it is going to be next year. Because, as Jen said, I'm crazy. Well, she didn't say that, but she alluded to the fact that I'm slightly crazy. But it is a lot of work. And I also, again, want to say, especially this year, this is what I do. You should try that, Ben Horsley. When you cry, just start punching the air. It's effective. But our amazing special education department, they really stepped up this year with making props and supporting the kids and doing that and making it possible. I could not have done it with our special education department, especially our awesome paraeducators. They're sometimes the unsung heroes of the school, and I think they need a little bit more recognition than they get. See, there you go, came out. But anyway, that's what Unified Theater is. It's basically a joint thing between our regular education students and our students with special needs to put on a show. We put on a show, so thank you for this recognition.
What we'd like to do is have all of our cast members and our recognees come up and shake hands with the board members and get a picture. Did you have another?
We have a quick 2-minute video
Please,
that Ms.
two.
Parks and the students put together that we'd like to play.
Great.
About being in Moana.
Yay! See? Yeah. I really just loved the fact that we were unified, because that just made me so special.
Hey.
Literally, anytime I was with Christian, it was all to me. just hanging out.
Will you do your chief rap for us right now?
Go ahead, Mr. Dishes on mission, and Moana. There's still much to do.
That was so good! Good job! Thanks, guys. Do you remember your favorite part? I love that. Hey, Seth, what was your favorite part? Was it way away too? Will you guys all do a way away for me? Go ahead. What's your favorite part?
The show.
The show, the whole show?
Yeah.
Mia, what was your favorite part? That's so cool. Kevin, what did you learn by being in Moana?
Singing.
Singing. What was your favorite song?
Avocado.
Yeah, I love that. Is there anything you want to tell people who are watching the video?
Yeah. It was awesome.
I love it. Thank you so much. You want to wave goodbye?
Goodbye.
Okay, good. What's your favorite part?
My favorite part is trying to want to see loved ones.
Okay, so Jaden's favorite part of Moana was shiny. And Ollie, did you like You're Welcome or Shiny better? You're Welcome. His favorite was You're Welcome.
I learned how to make friends, and singing and dancing is really fun.
What was your favorite part of the show, David? Oh, yeah. Oh, good job. That was great. Will you sing a little bit of your favorite song?
What's your favorite song? Oh, yeah? Yeah. You're welcome? Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah.
Very cool.
Should we go up there? Should we go up there? We're gonna take a picture. We're so cute.
Sure. We saw you up there. You were so good. We have autism. You're so good.
Can I shake your hand?
Hi, Whitney Rasmussen.
Nice to meet you, Whitney. Good job.
I'm a senior.
Great, you did such a good job. Thanks for being in. Thanks for what we did. You're such a good job. You did an awesome
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Your supportiveness.
If you can scoot in, that would be awesome.
Parents, will you also, parents and siblings and grandparents and whoever's here to support, will you also stand up and be recognized? Thank you. we recognize that it's a tough job to support any theater kid, so thank you for supporting your theater kids. No offense, but thank you so much for coming, you guys. We really appreciate it. You are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but I would recommend going and getting ice cream. All right. Next up on our agenda, we have granted elected officials participation time. I do not see any elected officials here, and we did not have any patron participation sign up, so we are going to go ahead and move on to our consent agenda. These items we've had as a board for the last few days, and so with that, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion on this? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. That takes us to our action item. The first action item that we have is the board leadership selection. This is something that we talked about earlier this evening, but to make it official, we do take action in this meeting.
I move that we have Nicole McDermott serve as board president for the next 2-year term.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second for Nicole McDermott to continue as president for the next 2 years. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Would you like a nomination for the
I would love a nomination
vice
for
chair?
a vice president.
I move that we approve for Chris Wynn to be our vice president for the next 2-year term.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to have Chris Wynn be our vice president for the next 2-year term. Any discussion on this? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for your trust in what I have been doing and will strive to continue to do. We have our next action item is the adoption of a preschool core instruction material. We do have Leslie, and thank you. For any questions that we have regarding this.
Hi, board members. I'm Nanette Barnes. I'm the Director of Preschool Services. I apologize for not being here for the last board meeting. Emily Ripko, our Assistant Director, covered there. I was taking my mom to her 83rd birthday to Nashville, so I didn't dare cancel that. Just to follow up on the board comments that you were sent that we did the summary on, we did receive one comment late last night that I wanted to read to you so that you had a full version of what happened. The comment that came in last night said, "It looks pretty good. I especially liked the safe keeper idea and the mindfulness that seems to be built in throughout." So just so you have an awareness of what safe keeper is, the curriculum has the students start with a morning routine that's kind of, they consider the morning ritual. One of those pieces is, first part is that they come together in what they call uniting, which is coming together, do songs, do things together. Then they have a calming portion that they consider it, and that's kind of a deep breathing type of mindfulness piece that this parent or patron, I guess, is talking about. Connect part, which is where they get the opportunity to do partner type activities and really build those friendships. And then the commit part is where the safe keeper comes in. And basically what they're doing is they're committing to the classroom rules. And the safe keeper is the idea that I'm committing to helping my friends and myself be kind to each other and keeping each other safe. So that's what this patron was talking about that they appreciated. But other than that, that was the only other comment that we had come in.
Is there any other questions?
Yeah.
I have 2 items real quick. I hope I appreciated your response by email.
Great, yeah.
To the electronic curriculum portion question, but I was hoping that you wouldn't mind kind of just summarizing that just for public benefit. I know not everyone goes in and reads all the the details about what's been brought up and knows what we've already discussed. So just to summarize, the background concern was raised just about the fact that there's electronic books, videos, things like that accessible on this curriculum, and it's for, preschool aged children who I think we all agree we don't want staring at screens. So if you don't mind just summarizing the response to that concern, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. So a patron had submitted the concern that there are electronic digital books that are offered, and how are we going to really guarantee that the teachers are not using the electronic versions versus an actual hard copy of the book and reading it to the kids? So the response that I had given the board was that one of our standing policies in preschool is the least amount of screen time possible. And it's something that we've been focusing on for a while, with the idea that we only have these kids for 3 hours. And so we don't need to add to the screen time that might possibly be something they're already experiencing. So all the curriculum, with the access to the curriculum that patrons had that were reviewing it, it shows everything electronically. The piece that you can't really see unless you come in and look is that all of those things are also in hard copy. And so that is what we'll be using in the classroom. The question was asked of, how can we guarantee that? And again, that goes back to our practice and our policy with coaches in our classrooms and with our training, focusing on why is it that we need teachers in that classroom so that we have that responsive environment. We have that opportunity for a teacher to be the one reading the book so that when questions come up or when things can be made, connections can be made that you could never have through screen time. Those are the things that we're focusing on with our preschool lead teachers and assistant teachers, is if they don't have those skills when they come to us, teaching them those skills so that they don't find themselves relying on something that this is a scary skill for me to get up in front of kids and to read books with them. I'm just going to lean over here to the digital resources. So those are the types of skills that our coaches are supporting in the classroom. If they have teachers that don't have those skills already, the ability to be able to get in there, model with them, and that type of thing. So as I had said in the response back, across 56 classrooms, we're never going to be perfect, but that's our focus, and that's something that our coaches are focused on continually in the classrooms. So it was a great question that was brought up, because it's something with preschool curriculums that's newer to have all of the electronic pieces too. And so as I was part of the committee helping to review those, I was quite surprised how much electronic there was. And so that's something that we'll just be, as we train to that curriculum, we'll just be talking about. Those are things that we're not using in the classroom. Yeah, great question.
Thank you, and I appreciated that response. Hopefully it alleviates concerns for others as well.
Yeah.
I did have another item, though. I brought up social emotional learning earlier tonight with board members, so maybe you'll understand why that was on my mind now. I note that this curriculum is an SEL-heavy focus. I know that that's the goal of the district. I know it's part of the strategic plan. So I know that you're following directives in that regard, so I'm not, going after that. But the focus on SEL and social skills and dispositions has always been and will continue to be concerning for me, for reasons I've elaborated on in the past. I believe we're on very tenuous ground imposing state-sanctioned beliefs and behaviors on our students. Schools are government institutions. I've talked about this before. We should never stipulate what a child's values should be or define their character traits for them, and our focus should be on academic education. So I mentioned earlier, and I'll reiterate, I would love if we would have a study session, and I'll talk to board members more about this, but if we could have a study session just on that topic, I think it would be amazing. And so I will bring that up more because I think it's only going to become a bigger focus down the road. And so therefore, this for me, despite the fact that I know you're simply following directives on this matter, I'm sure you have your own viewpoints too, but that's not the reason you're pulling that curriculum up. It's part of our strategic plan. I get that. But for me personally, it's a no, because I'll continue to vote no on items like this in the hope that I can continue to highlight my concerns on this topic with the board. So, thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? Okay. I'll entertain a motion then.
I move to adopt the preschool core curriculum as outlined.
Second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt the preschool core curriculum as outlined. Is there any further discussion on it? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay. And Stacy, may I request the reason for my vote be documented in the minutes?
Point of order, you need to go through the board chair in order to get that document.
So my apologies. Nicole, may I request, or you request on my behalf, that Stacy document the reason for my vote?
Yes, Stacy, may I make that note? Thanks. All right, we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you, ladies.
Just a note or observation, Board President, as appropriate. I really appreciated Director Barnes' response on how we utilize digital materials, and we're going to try to ensure that's enshrined in every other aspect of our district. So thank you for that. I'm going to go back in the minutes and actually take that verbatim and make sure that that's clear in many other places. You did a great job. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move on. We have an information item, our annual audit report. Turn the time over to Todd and company.
Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this evening. With me, I have Matt Geddes from Squire, who is our external auditor. So I'll turn the time over to him to talk about the annual audit report, and then I'll take a few minutes or less to go through a couple of the pages on the book you have at your desk.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. Squire and Company was engaged to perform an audit of the financial statements for the school district for the year ended June 30th, 2024, and issue an opinion on those financial statements. In your financial statements, that's on page 13. Ultimately, the opinion we issue is an unmodified opinion, or sometimes called a clean opinion, that the district's financial position presents fairly in all material respects the financial position and activities of the district. So what does that mean in non-auditor language? What it means is, as management, as a board, as decision makers, as users of the financial statement, they can reasonably rely that the financial statements are accurate, and you can use those to make decisions. In addition to an audit of the financial statements, we're required to perform a couple additional audits and issue a couple additional reports, which are in the back of the book. The first report that we issue is a report on compliance with your federal awards. You receive a significant amount of federal awards, federal funding, and we're required to perform an audit of those federal awards. We rotate which awards we test each year based on a risk-based approach that we must do. And ultimately this year, we performed an audit of your special education cluster, your education stabilization fund, or your ESSER and GEARS money, and disaster grants or FEMA resources, and issue an opinion on compliance that the district complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements outlined related to those federal awards. So a clean opinion that you utilize those resources and follow the compliance requirements as outlined for those awards. The state auditor's office requires an audit of specific state compliance requirements. They issue an audit guide each year that outlines some state compliance requirements that they require that we look at and perform an audit of. And we issue an opinion, and this is on page 164, of an unmodified opinion again, or a clean opinion, that the district complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements outlined in the state compliance guide issued by the Office of the Utah State Auditor. The final report we issue is in accordance with government auditing standards. We are required to perform an audit because you're a government. Our audit's required to be performed in accordance with government auditing standards. Government auditing standards require that we look at your internal control over financial reporting and compliance. And if we identify significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, we're required to report those to you. How I describe those in non-auditor terms is material weaknesses are things that should keep the board awake at night. Significant deficiencies should keep management awake at night. But we do not have items to report related to those, so also a clean opinion there. Any questions on the reports that we issue?
Actually, I guess this is less reporting and just functional. I just want to make sure I understand. I'm looking at this and seeing that we have half the received revenue than we did last year, and that's COVID money. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I'm
So
on,
for the
It
most
does-
part, yes, there was a
155.
significant change in the amount of ESSER funds that the district received
Yeah.
and spent.
just making sure I got that right.
Great, thanks, Matt. And he just covered most of the pages I was going to talk about, except for there was one page where we did have an audit finding last year with regards to wages, and we were able to get that corrected, and we do not have a repeat finding on that particular federal program, so that's good news.
Which federal program is that?
That was under the ESSER program for the capital projects.
That's right.
The only other
And
item,
for the record, I mean, that's like $60 million that is $60 million different from last year. I mean, it's no pocket change. It's a lot of money.
and those programs were designed to come to an end in the September 30th timeframe, so that's why that appears so significant. I'd like to make sure we do a call out to Chris Lewis and his accounting team. They are the ones that are doing all the heavy lifting, all of the hard questions, all of the accounting to make sure that the district is in compliance with all the requirements from the federal, state, and local issues. So I, again, thank that team. They did an awesome job to get us to this point. I would just call to your attention pages 16 through 26. If you do nothing else but read those pages, that's probably the best narrative portion of the presentation, and you'll have a good understanding of what the financial position is. We're in a good financial position as we prepare for the upcoming fiscal year. The fund balances are healthy and significant. They're in compliance with the requirements we have for our bonding. So we're in a good position as we move forward as a district.
Yeah, please pass our thanks along to Chris. I don't know, I guess we'll see him in a couple weeks, the audit. Oh, where are you? Oh, Chris, there you are. Sorry, you were behind Michelle before. Thank you, Chris, and your department. I know as I read through, I did not read through all of it, I'm going to be honest, but as I read through some of it, I was like, wow, this is a lot for Chris and his folks to do, so thank you. Thank you to our special ed department, who I think works hard to be in compliance with this and all of those other moving pieces that we have. So I know this is a lot of work, and I appreciate that, and I think we all do, so thank you. Is there any other questions, comments, thoughts? All right, thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and invite Dr. Bramble up. She has an update on our student assessments.
And it's just going to show I mean, is it going to be? Oh,
All right. Well, good evening, Board and Superintendency. Thanks for the opportunity to present you with the annual assessment report. This is an update that's done yearly, looking at last year's data. So it's a little bit dated in some ways, but it takes a while for the state to confirm a lot of the results. And so as we look at our information, we're going to look at how it relates to the student accountability indicators. And so those are graduation, ACT performance, advanced coursework, English learner progress, proficiency and growth. And then we'll also look at early literacy measures. And while they're not factored into these student accountability equations, they're strong indicators of future academic success. And I think we have some good news in our early literacy measures at this point. So this should look familiar. This is our student accountability system, and it includes proficiency, growth of the lowest 25%, and English learner progress at the elementary and middle school level. At the high school level, we add high school graduation, ACT performance, and advanced coursework. So there's a total number of points in each of these, 150 for elementary, junior high, and 225 for high school, and that's used to calculate an overall school grade. The assessment data that's presented in the following slides are going to look at each of these indicators for the 23-24 school year. And we're going to start with high school. There are some indicators that are unique to high school. So those would be graduation rates, performance on ACT, and advanced coursework. So as we look at our graduation rates, this graph is displaying those rates over the past several years so that we can see some trends. The top light blue line shows graduation rates for the state, while the bottom darker blue line shows the rate for Granite District. As you can see, our overall rate has increased steadily over the past few years. I mean, if you look all the way back to 2008, we've definitely come up a long way in graduation rates. We had a 0.8% increase from 22 to 23, and then our rates dropped slightly this past year in 2024. In comparison, the state's rate has remained fairly flat over the past few years and increased by 0.5 percentage points in 2024. It's really quite hard to move a district of this size when you look at percentage points. So as we look at our rates and as they've increased, we want to continue to look at making progress, but note that as you look at this state rate too, it stays fairly consistent. We've done a better job, I think, with looking at how we are helping our registrars to code correctly, and I think that's helped a great deal in our graduation rates.
Can I ask real quick, this might be a Karen question. When did Granger switch their 9th graders over?
That was fall of 13, I believe.
Okay. I'm just wondering if maybe we see a significant jump there after 2013 to 2017, and it continues to grow. Do you feel like that has any of that? Have we seen the benefits of having 9th grade in high school, I guess is my question.
I'm sorry.
Have we seen the benefits of 9th graders in high school, do you feel like, and reflected in this graduation rate?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I have not looked at that in detail, but that would be something that we could look at too. You would think intuitively it might make a difference.
I think anecdotally you can kind of look at that. It was actually the Granger community coming to the board, this is prior to my time, but to the board saying, we actually want 9th grade because we want to have, when 9th grade's in junior high, it's easy to kind of forget that it counts towards its graduation requirements. And so it was actually the community. So, I mean, obviously we can't say, that's the causation, but I think that's an astute observation to look at that jump right in that time frame.
Yeah, and potentially had that positive effect.
Just wondering if that was.
Good question, yeah. So one of Granite strategic goals was to increase graduation rates yearly by 1%. So we've been tracking this for that purpose, right? Our increase from 22 to 23 was just shy of this with a 0.8%. And then from 23 to 24, we dropped by 0.4%. So we didn't make that goal specifically. And then we'll see graduation rates by each school. Of note here, we have Hunter, Skyline, and Granite Connection that increased from 2023. I think the real success story here that you can see is Granite Connection too, that has steadily increased over the 4 years that are displayed. Now in talking to principal there, I think a large contributor to this was the introduction of the mini terms that they do. So it's really helped those students to be able to chunk that information and be able to be successful in graduation. So I think that's a great success.
Let me speak to that for a minute. I think that, I was going to bring this up in one of our former board meetings because I noticed that we have such a small population at Granite Connect. And I'm not sure why we have such a small population. I mean, I think it's important for an alternative school to be able to have small give more one-on-one, more adults to student ratio at an alternative high school. But man, I think that might be a resource that is untapped in our district, because I think as a teacher myself, what I don't want to do is I want to fight for my student to the end. I don't want to say, you know what, I think you need to go to another school. I never want to say that. And I wonder if that's happening in our schools. And as a teacher of an alternative high school, I know what benefit they can be to a kid. They can meet a child's needs on a different level that a traditional high school simply cannot. And I just really think that I mean, you look also, we're having some pretty good success with the YES program there. And I just really think that we need to look at that. That alternative high school can be a great support to our kids. And if we have kids who we know are not graduating, why would we keep them at their school? Why wouldn't we intervene? So I don't necessarily need a response to that. I wanted to make sure that we're thinking about it and that there's awareness to it. And also because, I'm an alternative high school teacher.
Can I just make a little comment? Just so you know, a lot of students are reluctant to go there because they don't necessarily get to go back to their high school. So they have to, when they make that choice to go to Granite Connect, they're there. And so sometimes I think that is part of some of the decision. I just know a few students that was hard for them to choose because they are choosing to not go back to their traditional high school.
There are a lot of reasons to not want to go. It's
reasons.
tricky because now you're not in with your friends. You don't have your athletics, or your extracurriculars. Maybe that's a policy that we reconsider. In my alternative school, if you pulled yourself up to a certain level that you could we saw a graduation path for you, we would return you back to your school if you wanted. Most kids did not want to.
Yeah.
They wanted to stay.
They want to be
with us.
done, yeah.
No, they didn't want to. They don't want to be done. They don't want to finish early. They want to stay. They love the alternative high school setting. So
I was going to say, we do actually allow students to transition back to their traditional high school if they've demonstrated that they're being successful. But we have most of the students don't want to. They like to stay where they're at.
There's a couple pieces to this too. I mean, a lot of times our students are participating in Connection High. It's a great way to gain credit recovery. They're not on a clear path to graduation or to be able to get the credits. But when there is that opportunity, correct me if I'm wrong, Leslie, that we do allow them to do that. It is a choice to participate at Connection High, and it is, while we're seeing tremendous benefits under the leadership and growth under the leadership of Principal Beck, it is, students often just decline that opportunity because they do want to participate in a traditional high school experience, or they don't feel like that's going to be the right experience for them. A lot of times they can go and participate, take a tour, and get in the building. I think they change their minds about the opportunities that exist there. But again, sometimes we do have students who we feel would be a good fit there and don't opt to participate there. So I don't think we're limiting people from participating, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And we do have capacity there.
Well, I think we should think about that because I will validate that is real. I don't think I ever had a student show up in my classroom who was like, hooray, I've come to your school. They were all mad that they felt like they got rejected from their old schools and felt like they were failures, and now they're in this school for failure kids, and they were mad. And it took a full 2 to 3 weeks before any of those kids could learn one thing in my class. They had to realize that they were okay here and that they were going to succeed. And so, but once they did, you had them and they were suddenly going to start passing their classes, which they weren't doing at their traditional school. So maybe we need to think about some better marketing or messaging that we can do for that. But I leave it to you guys to figure that out. But I just wanted to highlight that I really believe in that source, that resource. And I think that for some kids, that is exactly the tool that's going to get them to graduation. And it's just not going to happen at the traditional high school level because we can't meet their needs there. But we have Granite Connect for a reason, and we need to make sure that the kids who need it are getting there.
Yeah, one thing that Principal Beck has worked on, and that may attribute with the youth in custody program as well as Granite Connection High, is the relationship piece. We've worked on a warm handoff where a lot of students go to Connection or are referred to Connection, never show. So they don't even make it through the door. This way, it's a short turnaround time. They have an induction really quickly. They have a youth council that then welcomes the student, gives them a tour of the building. So he's worked on the relationship piece a lot in order to get them early. As soon as they leave their traditional high school, connect them into the culture. And he's done a lot of things like barbecues after the mini term and all those kind of things, socialization kind of things, so they feel like they're a part of something when they're there. And honestly, I think that makes a difference, and it's been working for attendance as well.
I would encourage you to all volunteer at the after mini-term barbecue and go flip some hamburgers for those kids and tell them congratulations.
Do you have to have your food
Let
down
us,
there?
No comment.
let us know when it is.
I'm going to push back just a little bit, Julie, because I think it's phenomenal what he's done at Granite Connection, and I love seeing this, but 46% graduation rate is not the same as the other graduation rates. And so I see what you're saying as far as some of those kids that aren't graduating in the other high schools might be successful there, but I think it's also I appreciate what he's doing, and I think he's got the key to it is that you make connections at your school, and that's what keeps you in school, and that's what keeps you going. And it's incumbent on any school to do that. So where we see some of these graduation rates dipping a little bit, maybe we need to see, okay, how can we get this community to get all of these kids involved in some way, shape, or form? And I think that's key in getting those kids across the graduation line.
I will say, though, it's tricky to put this school up against these other schools. It is not the same because every one of their kids comes in 2 years behind. And I'm assuming that this number does not include kids who take the GED instead.
No.
So this is not all the kids who get a diploma.
Right, and I
right?
recognize that a lot of those kids also, because they are credit deficient, just go on to the adult education
Yes.
and graduate from there very quickly after.
Yeah. So, I mean, 46% is a great number for an alternative high
Right,
school for
right.
a youth graduation rate. It's great, and especially seeing that growth, I would expect it will continue. It sounds like Dave is doing a great job figuring out how to get those kids who need it in the door and then get them succeeding. So
I'm just, the reason why I point that out is just because if you look at the numbers itself, I think people would look at that and go, we don't want to throw them there because the graduation rate is lower than anywhere else. That's not where we want to go. I get what you're saying.
You're right.
I'm
It's an
pushing on that.
unfair.
It's a little.
It's an unfair look.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Well, and we're going to see that increase in the future because now we're able to count students who do go into the GED program as part of our graduation rate. So
Can we
that'll be
count-
working, they're working through that in the future.
Can we
But
count the adult ed too?
yes, that's what they're talking about, is students who, resign from the regular public school system and go and get their GED, those will then be counted in a percentage. And so the rates at Granite Connection, I would assume, would go up in the future.
That's good.
If we're allowed to count those students as well.
If you have to you have to declare yourself an adult to take the GED. Am I correct on that?
No.
Okay, and if you are a youth and you take the GED,
We have students who take
do
the
we
GED.
pay for that? Does anybody know if we pay for the GED for them if they're a youth? I know we don't as an adult.
I know the foundation has sponsored some students in that regard. So, yes.
Some high school students?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they're currently not counted, those students who get a GED are not counting in that graduation rate.
This percentage.
Right, they're not counted as graduates, right.
Sorry for that.
All right, we can also look at our graduation rates relative to groups of students. And here we're looking at The purple line is all students at 79.1%. I think what's noticeable here as we look at our economically disadvantaged students, English language learners, and students with disabilities is those points have come together closer than they ever have. And the other, I think, notable thing is the students with disabilities rate has gone up quite a bit in the last few years. We have worked hard to make sure that the students who are eligible for an alternative diploma are getting that, and I think that is likely what we're seeing reflected here too, is that we're more accurately awarding some of our diplomas to our alternative diplomas to some students. So I think this is a nice rate to see as well. This slide shows us how we're doing relative to graduations by race. Here we see some of the fluctuation that you see might be related to, you're going to see more fluctuation if we've got smaller numbers. They're more likely to fluctuate more here. So as you look at American Indians, it looks like that rate is decreasing over the past few years. We've come together a little bit closer too, with the exception of our American Indian group in this particular graph.
Dr. Bramble, now that we're looking at this by race, can you just talk about how the new DEI laws relate to how we utilize this information and look at this information? I mean, in the past, I think I would have looked at this and said, wow, we need to really go and find out what our American Indian students, what's their struggle. But that is targeting their struggles in ways that I think is no longer acceptable with the DEI law.
If you don't mind, I'm going to take that one from Dr. Bramble, if she doesn't mind, and I'm looking at Doug as well. There's some specific provisions within HB 2, it's not 257, it's, I'm going to say the bill wrong, but I think we all know which bill we're talking about here.
Just make it up.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I'll pull it, Dr. Nine. In 53G, -217-4RGY. He's sitting by a pool watching this, laughing right now, I'm so sure. In that section of bill, there is actually a provision that excludes anything that requires data collection for federal tracking and grant process. So there's nothing that would necessarily prevent us from analyzing this data. It's part of state and ESEA collection. So there's some pieces there that are exempted from us analyzing this type of information. And then there are certain provisions. We use the EOS grant to help target at-risk students to get them into higher rigor courses. So there's some grants that we utilize, specifically utilizing this type of data, so that exception exists within the statute. Did I say that correctly, Doug?
That's right. It's HB 260.
260, I was close.
Thank you.
So another indicator we have is the ACT. So ACT is looking at the percent of students who score at an 18 or higher on the 11th grade administration of the test. And this is showing a comparison with state, the district, and then each of the schools. And so the percentage you're seeing reflected here is the percent of students that are getting an 18 or higher on that particular exam.
Just a quick follow-up question there. Is that limited to just the administration of the test that takes place at the high schools? So if a student takes it on another test date, it does not include that data?
That's correct. So yeah, these are only our 11th grade. So in Utah, all 11th graders take the ACT in the spring of their 11th grade year. A lot of our students also take the ACT at other times to get improved scores. Those other test events are not included in this particular measure.
Could you use those other test scores to show us what actual, I mean, after, rather than just stick with this, can we know, I don't know if you can if you have the information of those that have scored again, if they've taken the test again.
Yeah, the ACT produces a graduation cohort report, and that gives you a look at each school, and with the graduation cohort, what their ACT scores look like, and that is inclusive of any ACT scores that were taken by the student, I believe. So I can look into that, but that is available, and so it does give you that look. I think this gives you a better comparative look at every student. The students that are typically taking it again and again are likely getting higher scores, and they represent I think a different demographic maybe too than you're going to see in these scores that are going to be representative of the whole district.
Remind me also what, who, as far as our ELLs, who does take the ACT and who doesn't? Where's if they score lower on the WIDA, like a 1 or 2, do they still take the ACT, or are they exempt from that?
So that is based on when they arrived in the United States. So it's not based on a WIDA score, it's actually based on how long they've been in the United States or in a school in the US. Okay. And so within the first year, they wouldn't be, well, wait a minute, I have to fact check this too, but I'm thinking it's the same as we use for our RISE and Utah Aspire, which is they don't take it if they arrive within, I think it's April. No. I'm gonna have to look that up. Okay. So I apologize. But
no, that's okay.
Yeah, it's not based on WIDA's test scores. It's based.
So it's very possible that some of this might also reflect that we have ML learners and it's a test.
Yeah, certainly, yeah. Okay. Because it's inclusive of everyone. It's a diverse group of students that are taking the ACT, right?
Okay.
Well, and there's a lot of data that shows that, like if you're from a diverse background and you don't like fit this one mold, that you have a harder time on this test anyway, right? There are lots of cultural implications to this test. I'm only saying there's been research done about that, right? But also, special education kids, do they all take this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only exempt students would be students who take an alternative test. So they're our most cognitively, yeah. All right, this is showing the ACT administration, again, 11th grade administration, and the different subtests that are given. So you have a composite score, and then these are showing the average ACT scores across English, reading, math, and science. So we're seeing on the top the Granite District results, and on the bottom the state results of that particular assessment. The advanced coursework is showing the percent of students who earn a C or better in advanced courses, which include APIB, or they complete a CTE pathway. Oh, and in concurrent enrollment. I'm kind of off my game here today. So here, this, keep in mind too, is based on the cohort of students that represent the graduation cohort from the previous year. So this is one of those delayed indicators. So for example, the 2024 percentage is based on the graduation cohort of 2023 and their advanced coursework. The indicator shows an increase from 2021 and then a slight decrease in 2024. We see the state indicated as the black dot there too as a comparison. All right, the next indicators that we're going to look at are those that are included in both elementary, junior high, and high school accountability. These indicators include English learner progress in the dark green pie shape, And then that's measured by the WIDA Access Assessment, and then proficiency growth and growth of the lowest 25%. And those are all measured by RISE in 3rd through 8th grade and Utah Aspire Plus in 9th and 10th. So as we look at these, we'll take a look at English learner progress percent for the district. And here we see over the past 5 years and separated by K through 8 and high school. This percent represents the percent of English learners who meet their target each year as measured by the WIDA Access Test. Notable here is an increase at the high school level, and you see a reduction in the gap between the state and the district. I think as we look at this, we had some schools, notably Granger High School, that made some changes in the way they were addressing some of the needs of their English learners, and they were also assessing students in a different way that I think might explain that increase. We have a lot of other high schools that are moving to some similar models this year, so we're hopeful that that trend will continue.
Dr. Bramble, when I was at the Utah School Boards Association, talking to some other board members from other districts, I realized there are so many districts that literally have no English language learners in them in Utah. So, if you go one slide back, when with them, when that 9% that is considered when the state looks at this, does that, what happens to this pie chart when there's nothing in that English learner category? Do you know?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if there are too few students to be able to count this, they take it out, and that actually happens at a school level too. If a school doesn't have enough students to include this, it's taken out of the calculation, and then their overall points are less. The total points. So the total points for an elementary middle school is typically 150. So if those points are not included, it's reduced, and then it's 130 or something.
I see. So that there's still an effort to make apple to apples comparison. And so do you know how many or how many kids that has to be for an elementary?
Yeah, it's 10 or fewer that
10 or fewer takes this out of the equation. Okay.
All right, next area we'll take a look at is proficiency, which is measured in 3 different areas: English language arts, mathematics, and science. This chart showing the performance of 3rd through 10th graders in English language arts. We're seeing the results from the past 3 years too. So the darker bar here, as we look at 3rd grade, for example, we've got the darkest bar in 2024, where 34% of the students were showing proficiency on English language arts. And here we're looking at a state comparison as well in the black dot. We note here that it seems like there's a lack of growth from 22 to 24 in 3rd through 6th grades, and then a slight increase in 7th through 10th grade. Now this is something that we've talked about in the district a little bit in terms of why we might be seeing that type of a trend, but that is one of the trends that was noticed as we looked at the data. In math, we see kind of a similar trend here too, where we see our 3rd through 6th grade that seem like they're showing a slight decrease in math, and then 7th through 10th are popping up a little bit more over the last 3 years.
Is there any indication that that's because of the curriculum shift on the ELA side with letters?
Our letters curriculum, or the letters training is going to be earlier, and I think we're going to, when I show you the literacy, early literacy measure, I think you're going to see there where we're probably seeing an effect of the statewide effort to train all of our lower grade teachers. But I don't know that we're seeing that quite here yet. Sometimes we also have some implementation dips that we see when we introduce new curriculum. But these are large numbers too when you're looking at a district of our size. So I think it's important to keep that in mind when you're looking at some of the patterns and trends. It's sometimes easier to look at this at a school level and know more of the context of what you're looking at.
I think it's interesting I was looking at these, the state tends to dip right along with us. You know, it ebbs and flows, and we're not, even though we have still that margin from the state, we're still like, you see them dip when we dip. And
yeah, I found that interesting too, that our 6th grade seems to dip, but the state has also dipped there, and then they pop back up in 7th grade. It's an interesting pattern. Mm-hmm. So this is showing our progress towards that strategic goal 2, which was to increase math and English proficiency 1% yearly. We can see here that our actual was 0.3% in math, and we dipped in the wrong direction in ELA. This is combining 3rd through 10th grade. I'm showing the blue line here too as a state comparison, and again keeping in mind that these are big numbers and I think hard to move as we look at movement by 1%. And the last subject area that we look at for proficiency is science. We begin science in 4th grade, and we're also including the state comparison here. The scores here show slight increases at most grade levels. Of the lowest 25%. Both of these use student growth percentiles, but they use them in a slightly different way. I think what's probably immediately noticeable here is it looks like our growth went down in 2024. So this is showing growth for K-8. We've got ELA, math, and science, and we've got 3 years of data. In 2024, while it looks like these growth measures went down, the calculation that was used and the weighting changed. So as you're looking at individual schools too, you want to note that that drop you're probably going to see in all of your schools too, because they changed the weighting of the SGPs to calculate this growth. So while it may look alarming, you can see that the state also made a similar drop. Growth of the lowest 25%, though, is calculated in the same way in the 3 years that are displayed here. And so while this percentage here, the 46.5% in science growth, means that 46.5% of the points were earned in this, as we're looking at our percentage points here, and we've got a 55.5 in high school, what this means is that 55.5% of our students who are in the lowest 25% based on their performance from the previous year, we're getting a 40 SGP or above. So a 40 would indicate some moderate growth. Any questions on this? And then lastly, we have early literacy measures. And I think this is where we can see that we've increased from the previous year. This is our 1st through 3rd graders who are reading at grade level. And then we also track our students who are making typical or above progress. The goal at the state level is 60% of our students will be typical or above. And so we're exceeding that goal. But you can see that it looks like we've decreased slightly in that performance indicator. So the last slide, I've included a couple of links to some more assessment information. Data Gateway has a lot of great information, as well as this public Tableau site that has some really nice visualizations. I wanted to take a moment just to show you, though, how you might dig in deeper into the accountability indicators that you can see on this Data Gateway site. They've added this, and it's a really great resource.
Just escape once and it'll get you out.
Sorry, oops. There we go, thanks. So in Data Gateway, the accountability indicators dashboard is really quite well done. And so if you're looking at an individual school, this may be a place that you'll want to take a look. So you're going to be selecting the LEA and then a school. And here we've got Robert Frost. And so what we're seeing is the total percent of points earned by Frost on the accountability system. So those 150 points, they earned 60.8% this past 2024. Now note that that went down. As you're looking at individual schools, you're probably going to see that your schools have decreased in this overall accountability score because they changed the way the growth was calculated in. So just note that that's might be more typical to see a drop here. Over here, you're seeing your achievement points. So each subject area is dividing those 56 points. So each subject area receives 18.667 points. So here we've got English, language arts, and so this is the number of points they're earning based on the proficiency in English, language arts, in math, and in science. So over here I can change that indicator selection and go to growth. And here I'm going to see these drops that I was referring to because these drops again are related to the change in weighting. But these are kind of nice to look at as you can see the progress that a school has made in different areas or in different subjects. I can also take a look at their EL progress. These points are telling me of those 13 points, possible points, how many points they've earned. And again, these points are based on the students who are meeting their target or achieving proficiency. Again, thinking about some of the things that influenced this, in 2023, there was a change in the criteria for a student who is proficient in English language arts, proficient based on their WIDA access score. The criteria changed, and so you're going to see a bump here typically in 2023.
When did we change over to Acadians?
I'm sorry?
When did we change to Acadians reading?
So Acadians is not included in any of this because it's our assessment that is used for K3.
Okay.
For reading and math. And while the name changed, it still was essentially the same test. So these are only reflecting our RISE scores or Utah Aspire Plus scores for our high schools.
Okay.
Yeah, good
so
question.
It's not grades 1 through 3 are reflected.
So this does not include early grades. Yep, great question. Lowest quartile, you can see that one as well. Now, the other thing that's kind of cool about this is we can look at individuals, we can look at school groups too. And so if we look, for example, at our English language learners at Robert Frost, we can see how they did relative to each of these indicators. And this is important because as schools are identified for a targeted student improvement group, it's based on looking at this whole group as if they were an entire school. And I think this is a great way to look at that because you can see how that particular group did in each of these particular areas, which are then calculated into their overall percent. And what puts them into that category or that designation is whether they fall under this cut score. So a couple of things that might be helpful, I think, as you're looking at an individual school and making sense of the accountability system and what it might mean for different groups. And if your schools are talking about TSI or ATSI, this is a really helpful dashboard.
This is such an incredible tool. I'm so excited about this, and like, thank you to the state, whoever dreamed this up, that we were gonna have this and collect this data and then organize it for people to look at. Is there any way that a teacher can see this data, like sort by that teacher?
It is not at the teacher level here.
Yeah.
No. It's school level data.
Teachers get their own data though.
But teachers
Yeah, but
can-
I would love to be able to look at it and say, am I supporting my Hispanic kids okay? How am I doing with them in these different areas? Or how am I doing with my kids with disabilities, and look at that specifically. And I can do that by like organizing that myself, but realistically, am I going to, because I'm so tired? You know what I mean?
And there are tools that we create to be able to help teachers do that.
That's what I
Yeah.
really wanted to know, because
Yeah.
I think that would be a tool we'd have to create. Okay, we do have that, something like that.
We do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I'm backing up a little bit, sorry, not a question on this tool, but back to your slide on the graduation rates by race. I'm not recalling if I've asked this before, so I'm sorry if I have, but can you remind me if there's a reason why we limit this data to the 5 races listed? Is that because it's what the state or USB is looking for? Like, where does that come from?
Looking at different groups and.
Well, the reason we limit the graduation rates by race to the 5 races that we have listed. Is that because the state is asking for that specific data? Is it coming from somewhere else? I'm just curious why we pick those ones.
Oh, right. So we have federally defined groups that we need to pay attention to. Now, sometimes you might see some groups missing because we don't have enough of that particular population of students that we would be reporting them.
And when you say federally defined, that we need to pay attention to, so there's like federal laws that say we want to gather that data. Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
Utah's accountability model was written as a way to comply with the federal requirement that we have an accountability model. So we write it in compliance with all of their parameters. Therefore, these designations of these specific subgroups are in federal law.
Okay.
So I said that a little bit earlier, but I probably wasn't as clear. So we are reporting this data, and it is acceptable under 261 because it is stipulated under federal law. But I like the way that Dr. Nerden has indicated that as part of federal law, we're required to create an accountability plan, and it has all these specific pieces in it.
Thanks. I probably just didn't connect the dots.
That all ties back to the Elementary and Secondary Education Act and all of the reauthorizations of that.
Yeah.
No Child Left Behind and all those other iterations, they all tie back to ESEA.
And so I did call it ESEA, and that was my bad. So for the general public, it's funny that we were also, I'll just make a note, talking about the Granite Connections graduation rate, because even with their tremendous success, they're still considered a turnaround school under federal designation. We've actually had Representative Burgess Owens out as previous chair of House Education come out and help us potentially get that changed, because it's just this hanging around their neck, even though they're doing amazing things. And so, again, because of a federal requirement, we're jumping through a hoop on that front to some extent.
Thanks, Dr. Bramble. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Right, we're going to turn the time over to Dr. Nerden, who is going to review our strategic plan.
Dr. Bramble, you do a great job of like talking logically through all those numbers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bramble.
Do a great job answering Julie's questions.
Well, Luke, while Luke sets that up, I do want to just say, yes, Dr. Bramble has done a phenomenal job. The support that she gives out to our school leaders is unprecedented. If you ask anybody who's the most supportive person in the district office, they all say her. She is doing a phenomenal job in her role. We should give her a hand. Sorry. You have in front of you the Granite School District Strategic Plan, the one-page version. If anybody in the audience would like to see a copy of it, I've got some here. This one-page document just summarizes a pretty lengthy strategic plan into this more palatable one-page option. I'm going to get into the bigger version, but I wanted to share this with you. It helps to identify that we have two very specific goals, one around proficiency and one around graduation rate. And then we have three important priority areas: academics, social skills and dispositions, and talent development. And all of the things listed underneath those are data pieces that we are sub-goals, if you will, that help us to either implement a program or monitor its effectiveness. Excuse me. I think I can do this, Luke. We'll see. So close. Hey, look at that. This is the web page that we have created to guide us through the strategic plan. As we are working to implement the strategic plan, we're about to unroll this, to roll out this web page so that our educators as well as patrons can see more in detail what we're trying to do with our strategic plan and all the different aspects. I do want to say that this plan has been created in concert with all of the district leadership over the past few years, as you all are well aware. It is time, and we are going to get more feedback. That's why this is a work in progress, because we are in need of getting more people to be part of this. I remember one of my professors saying that if policy making is not include policy implementers, it's not a very good policy. And we need more policy implementers to be part of this. And so we will be engaging with principals in the coming months, as well as with teachers on the strategic plan. Part of the rollout of the strategic plan and what we're trying to do to help us to accomplish the goals of the strategic plan is we've adjusted this year our leadership. It used to be called the District Improvement Steering Committee, and that group of folks was just district leadership. That committee has done a yeoman's work, and they've put this together and done a great job, and they continue to be a big part of it. But we have added some principals to that committee, and we've envisioned the focus of that committee. It is now called the Student Achievement Leadership Team. No longer is it about district improvement, it's about student achievement. And then we're going to lead that. It just gives a real clear definition of what we're trying to focus on. That focus is articulated in the mission and vision of this new committee. The mission is improving student achievement by improving instruction. And the visionary statement is that we're going to try to close the achievement gap for every student group. As you saw Dr. Bramble go through that data, you see the state number and you see Granite's number. On almost every single area, there's a gap there. We're going to close that gap. That's our goal. There's no reason why we can't close that gap. There's plenty of reasons why. We're going to have to overcome some of those reasons, but that's what we're about. A subcommittee there are various subcommittees that are part of SALT, Student Achievement Leadership Team, and those subcommittees guide or lead out on these priorities. So we've got the Academic Priority Subcommittee, Social Skills and Dispositions Priority Subcommittee, as well as the Talent Development Subcommittee. And then they lead out in implementing and gathering the data and then bringing it back to the committee to talk about ways that we can refine and improve our efforts. Additionally, this year we have created an elementary guiding coalition led by some district folks and then these specific principals, leaders in the cohort of elementary principals. And they are problem-solving elementary. And we've got a junior high coalition that is doing the same thing with junior high. And the high school principals are going to come together. That committee is yet to be convened, but there's 8 of them, and they're going to solve their own problems. and we'll work with them. That's sort of an update on where we are with the strategic plan. I'm happy to take any comments from Mr. Horsley or any.
Oh, I just got, that's my grandpa, sorry.
That's right.
With respect to that, this isn't just about name changing things. This is about emphasizing a focus on improving instruction and outcomes with kids. And we have had tremendous support and help developing the strategic plan. The strategic plan is a great detailed analysis, but it's important that we, in order to get buy-in from the people who implement this, for them to have a voice and an opportunity to provide feedback in terms of these specific measures. If you click on each of these specific things, it goes into even greater detail than what you see in the summary sheet here. So I think there's some critical pieces there, and we certainly want to make sure that our teachers and our administrators and even the general public, you'll see this as part of the discussion in next, is our DCC later this month?
28th.
I don't even remember what day it is. So it's later this month, and you'll see that conversation continue to be perpetuated with our public. And we want people to know and understand what we're trying to work to accomplish so that they can, in turn, provide the help and support that will help get us there. So when he says there's no reason, there's lots of reasons. But we don't want to have any of those reasons to believe be tied to a lack of collective advocacy. That in Granite School District, we believe every child can learn and every student can achieve at high levels. And ultimately, that's what the thrust of this plan is all about. And that's what Dr. Nye believed in when he implemented it. So it's about taking this to the next level and moving us on to the actual implementation of these goals. And part of that, again, is getting our community and our stakeholders to know and understand what these principles are and how that works and functions at their local school. You've seen a lot of school community councils start to implement some of these same measures and goals into their own plans, which is appropriate. But at the same time, if there's a measure here that doesn't really help us move the needle in the way that we want it to, then we want to hear that and get that feedback and make appropriate steps to adjust the plan. We're not going to just be beholden to this because it's what we started with, right? And we also, frankly, want to be a little bit more aggressive. There's some data and some research. Been reading a book on PLCs and building cultures that last, and I love a quote from that book. I don't have it in front of me, so I'm going to totally screw it up. But the concept of it's okay to have big, hairy, audacious goals. And it's better to shoot for the moon and only hit the stars, or maybe I have that backwards, but still make tremendous progress. And so we want to get that buy-in from our community that these things are possible. We have many schools that are doing those things on a regular basis. So it's really all about how do we build the culture that allows us to continue to aim high and get tremendous outcomes, because we have the talent. We have incredible teachers. We have incredible families that are supporting us, and we have incredible instructional leaders and our principals. I believe we can do this, and I need everybody else to believe me as well. So that's the goal of the next step of the strategic plan.
Any questions?
I think we're onto something so exciting here. I'm so thrilled about it. I want to know if I'm a nutrition worker or a plumber, do I receive vision from this? Where do I fit into this? Or if I'm in accounting or HR, do you understand my question?
If you're an employee in the Granite School District, but you're not necessarily an educator, how do you fit into this?
Yeah.
I think I'm going to tap into my inner Dr. Nice, so pretend I'm bald and less handsome. I'm sorry, less tall. More tall? I get that wrong. I'm going to fake some code now. He said everybody who works for Granite School District is an educator. So part of that collective efficacy is helping everybody who's part, whether you're an accountant, whether you're helping with custodial services, or you're in maintenance department, or you're Brian Ibsen. Now as a director, you're out in our schools more often, and you're seeing what we're working to accomplish. And so it's about, part of this outreach process is about building that collective efficacy. They need to believe just as much, because they need to know the work that they do. And I believe many of them already do believe this, by the way. I don't think this is going to be a tremendous mountain to climb. But just really helping them, helping everybody to understand and enhancing that understanding of the work that we do each and every day, whether it's answering a phone, typing up a report, using a calculator, moving a wrench, goes towards helping students feel a sense of belonging, be part of a community. This is why our bus drivers need to smile and be nice and be kind, and why custodians need to welcome students at schools, and secretaries need to be welcome. They're all such a critical part of the work that we do. And I would say this, we know from our own data that we see that people aren't leaving Granite School District or public education as a whole because the outcomes are bad. And in fact, comparatively, apples to apples comparisons show consistently that we outperform our charter school competition when you take into consideration socioeconomics and other factors, at-risk factors. But what they do leave is they might not have had a positive experience. So when they might have just had a poor customer service experience. There might have been a lack of communication or a misunderstanding. And so beefing up, if you look in, you're not gonna see it here per se, but there are other aspects of this in the work that we do in terms of family engagement and other aspects where our employees can have tremendous influence. And so it's just really more important to just make sure they know and understand that they are part of a bigger collective that is doing incredible things, and with their help and support, and even just with the correct attitude, can make a huge difference. That was a really long answer. I apologize.
I want to just say, validate, now that you're saying this, I agree with you. I think a lot of our people do understand where they fit into this. Like when I went to talk to the people who make all the lunches and the nutrition services, they know it. They can tell you exactly how they fit into this plan. And as our directors go out and they are leaders and mentors to the rest of our educators, and I use that in the same way that you meant it, Ben, I think it's really important that all of them see themselves in this. Where do I fit into this? Because I do think it just takes all of us, and like you said, we have we have so many talented people, and if all those resources are focused like this, I think we can really make some headway. I'm really excited about the work you guys are doing.
I want to say, I think most adults that work in a school are very willing to call out students when they're not being compliant. And we need that same effort to call out students and tell them, you're doing a great job. Let's get you, how's math going? Instead of, why are you in the hallway? How's that math class going? Are you getting the support you need? Do you need something else? That kind of concept where we are focused on learning. The painter, as they're not saying, hey, get out of the way, I got to paint. They're like, hey, how's math class going? Do you guys need some help? I can take a break. I know how to do the Pythagorean theorem.
I think that this is all a good conversation, and I think we're spot on as far as, treating everybody like an educator. I do think some positions are easier. I mean, obviously our teachers, our administrators, if you're walking the halls and you're passing classrooms, I think it's an easy connection, right? I think it gets a little harder when you're in the maintenance department and you're fixing bathrooms and painting and, you know, building security systems at West Kearns Elementary. Thank you. And so I think it's a little bit on us to make sure that that message is getting out and help people connect the dots that, you know what, kids are going to learn better if they know that there's a working bathroom next door. And they're not stewing and fretting about what happens if I have to go to the bathroom. And then their mind is on that, and they could not care less what their teacher is saying at that moment. So to help all of our employees, remind them that their work is vital and help them connect the dots. I think we need to take some ownership in that and give some thought. And how are we doing that? Because I know we go out once a year. It's, you know, Counselor Appreciation Week or Principal Appreciation or Teacher Appreciation, and that's great. But I don't really believe once a year is enough to really thank any particular group of people. It's great to be recognized that particular week. I'm not downplaying that in any way, shape, or form, but I do think that perhaps we can think of ways to communicate more frequently and remind people of this concept. You know, I know Dr. and I, going back to his kind of analogy, it was the good old analogy of when somebody went up and approached that worked for NASA and was emptying the garbage, and they said, "Oh, what do you do here?" And he said, "I'm helping put people on the moon." And he got it, right? And so for us to be able to ask any single employee of the Granite School District, what is your job here? And if they could answer, I'm going to help kids graduate. I'm going to help kids get prepared for their future and their next step, whatever that may be, college, you know, armed forces, pathways, whatever. I think we might have a little bit of work to do there.
I would agree with that, and I'm very open to ideas and suggestions. One thing we have implemented to try to tie in and help our community and even within our school cultures understand the importance of every employee and their role is these hallway minute videos. I don't know if you've had a chance to see what those look like, but I mentioned Cheyenne, the lunch worker at Wright Elementary. Just knowing that we knew how important she was in creating a sense of belonging in her school and helping kids feel welcome and safe. Just a simple acknowledgement, I think we can do better. I think you're right. And I certainly want to know and understand what those ideas, so I'm putting that out there to everybody. We got PTA, we got GEA here, but anybody who's watching, I want to know what that looks like. And maybe our educators, whether they are wearing a plumbing uniform or a nutrition services, maybe they can help us better understand what that looks like too.
And how do you get the PTA involved in this? I mean, that is a powerful force. You get them behind the strategic plan, you're going to see some like serious stuff, I think.
Absolutely right, which is why this website's going public soon, and we're going out to district community council and our public as a whole, and the goal is to engage all of our school community councils and other parent stakeholder groups to really understand. Again, it's about not just evaluating the measures, but to make sure we're focused on the right things.
I appreciate that it is in a more palatable form that people can understand, and I think is very easy. So I appreciate the work that you did on that and making it understandable to people. And I think I agree.
And when is that district community council meeting?
I think it's the 28th.
At?
It's here.
6 p.m. here.
For those people who are on that committee.
I can come to that. I'll have to get Chief Porter to keep me out.
We'll have to chat about that later. Okay. All right. We're going to move on to the legislative preview. This is Ben and Todd.
Just let you know the over-under among the executive staff for the meeting tonight was 9 p.m. So I'm very cognizant of betting.
It's Julie's fault.
You know I to screw that up.
I know you do. I'm just putting that out there because we are now passing the over. So, yeah, we're gonna hustle through this real quick. We have a lot of slides. We're gonna go through really quickly the legislative calendar. Todd's gonna take over revenue, and then I'm gonna hit on some interim bills in our tracking sheet. So, not gonna spend a ton of time on this. We generally kind of work through this, but we've done some education on how the legislative process works and when appropriations requests are due and some of the other deadlines that we see throughout the session. But you can see the final day of the legislative session there is March 7th, and that officially means it's spring after that because suddenly you come outside at the end of the day and it's light again. So you know when the legislative session's over. So Todd's gonna take us through some state funding real quick.
All right, so the next couple of pages we'll look at here are documents from executive appropriations in December. These are looking at overall state revenues coming in for the fiscal year 26. The number circled here that is of most interest is the $488 million of new revenue from all revenue sources into the state. So this is what the legislators are working with. First go at the money, though, comes from the Executive Appropriations Committee itself. And when you go through their list of prioritized items, about $220 million of the 488 is already committed. Fortunately, most of that money is for public education. So you'll see on there a line for the Economic Stabilization Fund of $51 million, growth of $21 million, and inflation adjustment of $180 million. So those are all dollars coming to public education for the upcoming school year and is the primary funding source for public education. You'll also see down at about line 20 that there are some set-asides. So the executive appropriation is already setting aside money out of these ongoing streams for a tax reduction. So this is an income tax reduction, and also for compensation of state employees.
Sorry, did you say this is just income tax revenue, or this is the entire budget?
This is all revenue sources.
Okay, thanks.
So so when you take the two subtotals together, that's about $480 million, and that's how much revenue there was. So as we go into the session, there's not a lot of extra money for other projects other than these set-asides that executive appropriation has already accomplished. Within that, we have what are called the legislative fiscal analyst recommendations. So these are additional ideas for the executive appropriations to prioritize and set aside dollars for. We already talked about the first three there having to do with the framework for public education. There is also a challenge with the way that forecasting is working for the funding of the state. And in particular, we'll go to a slide here in a minute, but in the current year, the minimum school program will be about $40 million short. And that's just the forecasting difference between the estimates at the start of the process and then the actual numbers that come in on October 1st the next year. So we had our October 1 counts just a couple months ago, and the estimates were off by $40 million. So there's a hole in this current year budget. So the recommendation is to fill that hole with Education Stabilization Fund monies, and to then set aside another $50 million next year for a total of $95 million for the same potential problem. That's of significance because there's only about $480 million available in the Education Stabilization account, and they just carved out $95 million out of that total. If you go down to the lower section, you'll see that there is the educator professional time and teacher supply materials. Those are also proposed to come out of the stabilization account. You add those on to the calculation, and now there's only about $200 million left for legislators to fund any kind of projects that they're interested in. So this is a really tight year revenue-wise. It's a good thing that public education's been prioritized. So we do have those key pieces of monies coming through, but there's not a whole lot of anything else.
Why is it so tight, Todd?
It's tight at this time because of perception. We've come out of a couple of years where we've had over $1 billion available each fiscal year. And that has to do a lot with the federal stimulus package that went through in response to the pandemic. So those revenues and stimulus have worked themselves through the system. We're actually looking at what life used to be like before the pandemic. We would see growth in a $400 million range. The difference, though, is that we have this inflationary adjustment commitment to public education. And that takes $1 to $2 million or $200 million. That's like half the dollars just for that one commitment. So that's why it's starting to feel tight. And some of us are worried that that inflationary adjustment might get some special attention in upcoming sessions because it does take a large piece of any new revenue.
But it's also tight because of income tax reductions, right? Over the last few years.
So those have, yes, those have taken place, but within the forecasting they're anticipated. So that it's not so much that there isn't money, those are accounted for, and these are dollars even beyond that. Had mentioned that the current year is looking at a shortfall. This is just more detail of where those shortfalls are being derived. And so I'll just leave it at that for right now, in the interest of time, since I'm going to lose the under and over. We also have on here from the Common Data Committee what the enrollment projections are for next school year. You'll see granted there on line 12, the state is anticipating that we would experience about a 1.8% decrease in our enrollments next school year. Not far off from what Steve Hogan had presented last month. Overall, if you look at the top, you'll see districts are anticipated to decrease about 1.6%. Charter schools expected to grow 2%. But even with that growth, the overall impact of the state is an anticipated 1.2% decline in enrollments. And that level of decline is expected into the next 5 to 7 years. So we're now in a downturn cycle that the state has not experienced in decades.
That decline will result in fewer dollars.
It will result in fewer dollars.
The whole harmless idea was connected to the amendment that didn't pass, is that right?
Correct. Yes. We'll skip over this. Well, I'm just having fun with this slide.
It's like I didn't understand this one.
So, oops, I just pushed something I shouldn't have. Let me go back into it. Oops. Don't go, whoa, we're having fun today.
I was really excited for that fun slide.
That's my favorite slide out of all of them, because I get to tell.
3.94, that's what it says.
I hope you're inviting me to your party style.
Wow, we're done with it. We're already to the end. We're getting there. We're getting there. All right. So this is just a page out of the Census Bureau's update on consumer price indices. So this is the one that is being used, the CPIU is being used by the legislature to guess or to estimate what the inflationary adjustment needs to be to the value of the WPU. And they use the September values. So that's why the September column is highlighted. The average is 3.94% over the 5-year average that the state uses in its calculation. The reason I was having some fun with this is it's 3.94% on the actual hard math, but they're giving us 4%. So we're already better off than what the statistics would say we should have.
So you're saying in 2 years, though, we're going to get, it's going to be awesome, right?
It depends on, I think awesomeness has happened, and it'll probably start to decline from there.
I'm trying to be positive.
You're positive. It's going to be awesome for 3 more years, and then the big year will fall off.
I'm saying once 2020 drops off, though,
It'll look really good, but it depends on what's coming up, so. I should get out of the business of pushing buttons. There we go. And then this is looking at property taxes. Again, from the Common Data Committee, there is expected assessed growth in the near future, in this case for 2025. But the red line represents the percentage of growth increase. And what we're seeing here is there is growth, but it's slowing down. And so the years where we saw significant property taxes coming in will start to come to an end, or at least slow down.
Is this for the whole state?
This is the whole state.
Okay.
Yep.
So our local revenue will decrease.
It will not grow as fast as it has historically.
Okay.
But we haven't had significant growth in our district much anyway, have we?
So our growth's been more in so new growth, which is the money question, has been around 2%. The assessed valuation growth has been following pretty close to the state's trends.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Kim had a question.
Yes.
No, I was just saying, you talk about new money, not that we'll lose money, but the growth of the total value of our income, property tax is going to be smaller.
Yeah.
This is just to call out the constitutional amendments. Amendment A didn't even make it through the courts. It was voided, but the consequence is that some additional revenues for public education won't happen as well. So there was a commitment to add 2% should the amendment have passed, as well as the hold harmless that Member Chandler had mentioned. That will not be in place.
And is there discussion about a replacement for this? Have you heard any?
That's a really good question. There are probably 3 bills that are coming out that will address property tax, income tax, or some combination of the two. One of them is I call it a tax diversion. I think I might have it listed on another slide. But they're looking at taking the revenues that come from the basic levy, and instead of having that collected at the district level, it would be collected at the state level, go into state accounts, and then from there, it becomes part of a shells game, and could appear somewhere else. So there are some other measures, because again, some of the energy behind Amendment A was to have flexibility for the state to cover other state expenditures. So by having dollars not come into our coffers but go into the state coffers creates a path for flexibility.
But this amendment was voided because of a technical failure. So I wondered if they would say, oh, well, we'll just go do it again, but we'll do it in the correct pathways. Do you feel like this is ended?
My impression is this approach has come to an end for right now. They are looking at other approaches to create flexibility.
Still to tap into that income tax,
But
just
through a
through
shells
different
game.
avenues.
Yeah.
I see, okay.
So you're saying that we collect the basic levy, but they want the flexibility to spend the money that we bring in through our basic levy?
Yes.
Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, so the basic levy generates between $600 and $700 million.
So we could vote to raise that levy.
So the basic levy is set by the legislature.
Oh, sorry,
not by
I'm
the school
thinking the
board.
board levy.
Yeah, no.
Oh, okay.
Board levy.
Sorry, I had basic board, okay.
I was under the same
Yeah, thank you for clarifying, because I'm over here going, wait, I don't like the basic levy idea either, but.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm so glad you asked that.
So I'm trying to remember, the basic levy though, is it listed under Granite District? So if it increases, would it look like we increased it? Or, I can't remember how it's listed on the tax.
So it's listed as the general school basic levy dash Granite, because we have a family of levies that are all school related.
Okay.
It's its own line item on your tax notice, but it does have the Granite name next to it.
So they'll still curse us even though we don't do it?
Yes, we have the privilege of imposing the tax so that we can participate in the minimum school program. Did I say that nicely enough?
You said it a lot nicer than
You're
I
always
did.
so political, and I'm so good.
And the other piece of legislation that did pass was Amendment B, having to do with the school trust fund, and that there's more revenue that will be released through that process. And I'll just hit these really fast. These are programs whose money will discontinue after this school year. So these are dollars, and we do participate in these programs, so there are fiscal impacts to the school district as these go away.
Wait, this is being proposed?
No, this is
already done.
happening. This is happening. So the Grow Your
I
Own,
didn't know that about.
gang prevention, high poverty school stipends, those are all on one-time money this year. When the school year ends, these dollars end unless the legislature does something to reinstate the funding. School fees is on a 3-year phase-out. We will have an impact in the first year of the 3 years. Also, there are several programs whose funding mechanisms are being changed, or their funding formulas are changing, and all of these programs will also impact the Granite School District as well. And I'll just jump through these really quick. This is how the governor envisions the 26 budget coming together. So he does have the 4% growth, or inflationary adjustment, enrollment growth. But you'll see that his priorities were to take the Education Stabilization Fund and prioritize it for CTE and for school safety. So he was taking the lion's share of those dollars for these purposes. Those have not shown up yet on any legislative lists. And with that, I'll give over the mic.
Just a couple of bills I want to highlight where I looked at my legislature today, the little online tracking tool. I'm up to 42 bills on the ones that I'm aware of. I will tell you that usually there's a general sense of where the session is going, and I don't have any idea. I'm just not hearing anything, and that kind of worries me a little bit. We usually see some themes or some ideas or some collaboration on a number of fronts or educational ideas, and all is quiet. And so when the voucher bill was passed, kind of the first week of the session, kind of had that same feel. And so I don't know if we're going to get ambushed again on some other pieces, legislation, diversion programs with relation to Amendment A. I honestly have no idea what to expect this session, but with the revenue picture, it's not looking to shape up as a great year. So a couple bills, this education testing amendments, this just increases some and changes the provisions requiring the types of assessments, particularly at grades 9 and 10. And this was a committee bill, so I expect that will go far. Next one, class size reduction modifications. This kind of changes, there was during the interim, and this is probably better for Todd to describe because he gets this, his definition of fun is different than mine. Let me just put it that way. But he understands some of these pieces. There was a lot of reporting out during the summer interim with regards to how we utilize class size reduction funding and what its intent and purpose is. And so this kind of clarifies some of those pieces and kind of redirects how that money can be spent. English learner amendments, when I saw this bill, I was kind of excited about it. During the interim, we also did some report outs on our multi-language learner programs. This appears to, he talked about fund balances left over from, what's it called? The minimum school program fund. When there's leftover funds in that, legislators can designate that to other projects or pieces. Right now it's in the whole, right? So that wouldn't be applicable this year, but in future years, you could get some emergency funding if your enrollment of students learning English meets or exceeds a certain threshold. Well, that threshold, I think, is 50%. All of our schools are well north of some of the largest multi-language learner populations, we're not going to see an increase of 50%. This would impact us, be more beneficial to a school like, I don't know, Harriman High that might go from 60 multi-language learners to 100. And suddenly they've seen a 50% increase. And so they could get some emergency funding for resources. Did I state that right? So school safety amendments, this ties to last year's HB 84. To be clear, as we talk about the revenue picture and shaping up just to meet the minimum requirements, we've had this conversation in executive session before, and we've been tried to be very clear that implementation with our, we've tried to be very clear with our legislative partners that implementation is an $8 to $10 million annual cost minimum. And so looking at that and looking at a potential 4% minimum WPU increase with all the other budget considerations, we know that there's a potential that we would need to raise taxes. The idea behind the school safety amendments is that there's some other pieces they're modifying from HB 84. What we hope to see is some additional funding and revenue that could help offset those costs, but the likelihood of that is very minimal. It sounds like if there is additional help and support, it'll be one-time money only. And we know that $8 to $10 million cost is an ongoing cost, and I don't believe the board is interested in increasing class sizes to provide armed security in schools. So it is something that we're going to have that conversation about. Flag display amendments is a new bill that was just made public. This is basically limiting which types of flags can be present in classrooms. There was another version of that bill that didn't get very far, I want to say 2 sessions ago. This one is a little more specific. That last one was a little more broader, ambiguous, and I think that's what the struggle was. But I want to be clear here, the intent of the purpose of this is to prevent the display of pride flags. And so it's basically designating which flags could be, that's the language is what it shows. So again, 114 bills available. I actually checked again today, 2 more bills were made public. I'm gonna highlight one more of those that I just saw was made public earlier today. It's HB 104, and this requires the state board to establish standards for firearms safety instruction in public schools and requires an LEA to provide firearms safety instruction to students. I do not want to diminish the importance of firearm safety instruction, but what I do struggle with in a bill or a mandate like this, and I'm seeing some of the stipulations, every student once per school year from kindergarten through grade 6, and every student once while the student is attending middle school and at least once while the student is attending high school. Is this the role and responsibility of public education? And when we have so little time to be able to cover the topics that we're held accountable for, this would be another mandate that's fallen on public education to basically provide hunter safety. And so that's another bill that's made public today, and we already talked about HB 40. So that concludes our presentation. Do you have other questions for us with regards to the wonderful up-and-coming legislative session that is before us? Yeah, fun under Todd's definition.
I think we're good, right?
I would like to just make sure to say to board members, so in USBA, there are a couple of things you should be aware of that will help you to advocate, and I think that we have a board who really is great at that, especially because I think most of us have good relationships with the legislators who live in our communities. And so one of the things is that we're going to initiate a push pause initiative, which is, can you just let us get our act together after the 500 bills that we've had to adjust? Can we just take a deep breath this year and have less education bills? And there's support for that because there's not a lot of funding. Yeah. And so there's a good reason for that to be successful if we all can have that messaging. And then the other thing is that, and you'll hear a lot more about this at the conference, we're going to start to try to organize our board members. And so there will be a QR code there that you can, do, and then that will sign you up for a call to action list. And so when something happens, you'll get a text that says, call to action, you need to contact your legislator, and it will say, here's the bill, here's why we don't support it. Here's a general summary of it. Contact your legislator. And then there will also be an effort to, one thing that's happening that's never happened before is that public education is starting to have people who are against public education showing up in big numbers in the rooms of the education committees. And so there's an effort to make sure that the education committee knows that there are two sides to that argument, and for us to fill the room with people, and there will be an effort for us to wear white to be visible. And I'm just thinking of all the ways you can advocate really quickly. And the last thing is that remember that we have Day on the Hill, which is January 27th. And that's also a day to wear white so that we can be visible. And I think that visibility is more important than ever. So, whereas I'm not one who usually likes to we're all wearing white, so I'm going to wear white. I think I'm going to. It's going to be hard. But I'm going to. It's for the kids.
All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and move on and invite Doug up to the front.
Hello, board members. We have two first readings to discuss tonight. The first one is the Student Code of Conduct and Discipline of Students Policy. That is Article 8B12. Thanks, Luke. I will mention there was some conversation that I wanted to bring up. Kim had mentioned that in our law and policy there was some recollection that this was a policy that perhaps we should table, at least until we have an opportunity to speak to some community members. My recollection was that we had, and my notes and Joe's notes had also confirmed that we had discussed tabling the policy related to bullying and cyberbullying, but it wasn't, we didn't have a notation that we were to table this one. However, let me just explain what it is and allow the board to determine how you want to proceed. So this is simply a policy that was the prevention student placement. It asked for a modification, and that modification is just one sentence. That sentence is located on page 7 of the bill. Of the policy under subsection 2G. There's a need identified by prevention student placement to include in our definitions of creating a substantial disruption, an increasing activity engaged in by students of making false claims or reports of an emergency at a school. So based on that, we had added that that particular sentence. That's the only correction or modification to the policy. However, again, based on mine and Kim's conversation, I'd be happy to table this, or we can, it's up to the board. We could vote on it tonight to include that one modification. If you have any other questions about the policy, I'd be happy to answer.
And I'll just maybe add to that, I thought that that's what we had talked about, that we would be presenting both these policies in a couple of different places, looking for feedback.
Right.
And that because of that potential for change.
That we might have
to either
additional
of those
changes
that-
based on feedback from the community.
That
Sure.
we would
I didn't remember
table
that
it.
this one was included. I think it was just the one that we were talking about.
I will mention that we will be discussing this policy with community members. So this, whether we have community members who have feedback on this policy, I don't know, but we will be discussing this particular policy with community members. So
Because we're discussing both, that's why I thought we would be holding off on both. But
I totally see. I think it's nebulous too of what we actually decided on this, but I think that I feel confident about going ahead and approving this for a first reading, knowing that we have to do a second reading and that we could integrate feedback and still do a third reading if we needed to after that feedback, I feel okay with it because I think we still have opportunity for that feedback. And we know that it's coming in, we have a timeline for the feedback.
Right.
So I'm still in support of moving forward.
And I don't remember that we had any major changes on this one. It was the bullying one that I think we all
Yeah.
had questions on, so.
Yeah, but the discussion, the feedback that we talk about with the bullying, it could impact this.
It could.
It could.
I mean, there's
but I think
there's
it's
a
more-
chance
yeah, I
that we'd
think
get
it's-
some good feedback we want to do.
I mean, I agree. That's totally fine.
Well, I move that we approve 8B12 Student Code of Conduct and Discipline of Students for a first reading.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Article 8B12, Student Code of Conduct and Discipline of Students, as a first reading. Is there any further discussion on it? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you, board members, for that. And again, sorry for the for any confusion there. The next policy that we are proposing is Article 5C9. This is our vehicle use standards policy. There was a request for changes and modifications to this policy from particularly our CTE department, and we had distributed this policy to many others, including our SLIDs, to seek input. The idea behind the changes to this policy were to increase the definitions and the specificity with respect to what is acceptable safety measures when utilizing or operating school or district-owned vehicles. So we had made updates and modifications with respect to safety, also accountability, how the district-owned vehicles are used, and then procedures for any type of post-accident incident. Those were the major changes to that policy. If you have any other questions about it, I'd be happy to respond.
Does this apply to our police department vehicles?
That's a good question. I don't think we necessarily address that in our law and policy. In our definition, my recollection is that we are considering districts, all district property. I will state that the changes that we've made, I'd have to check with Chief, but I don't think the changes we've made would impact the way that those vehicles are being operated. They would have to incorporate the any post-accident procedures. Essentially, that comes down to, if you look on page, well, I don't have the page numbers, I'm sorry, but under subsection F, under accidents, we actually do already have in all of our district-owned vehicles a little card that we keep in the glove compartment that incorporates or that has these little post-accident protocols. We could make sure that our law enforcement officers also keep those in their vehicles as well. It's an excellent question, Chris. I don't have a good answer for you other than I think that we could incorporate all of these same safety standards, and I think that our law enforcement officers are already following them.
I know there's like a subsection with bus drivers.
Yeah.
And so perhaps we can add a subsection for our police force cars.
That's not a bad
Just
idea.
an idea.
Yeah.
It seems like, I'm just going to say, when I read through it, I did have that in mind, that we were talking about buses as well as police cars, and it seems like there were a couple of them that I was like, wait a minute, but then there was a provision for it later as far as, with the exception of, right.
Just making sure we're covering all,
Yeah, no,
all
and
department vehicles.
And I guess what I'd be happy to do is to go back and just make sure that I review this with Chief and with Dave Gaddy once again, just to make sure. I think that we are covered, but if we're not, I could make some modifications and bring those to you next month.
Thanks, Doug.
Well, I move that we approve 8B12 student, no, that's
No.
not it.
Five.
Can you go to
Sorry, next one.
the next slide? Thank you. Article 5C9, vehicle use standards for a second reading with the understanding that we'll do a third and final reading.
This is a first reading.
Sorry, because the last one was the second, for a first reading, assuming that we'll also get some feedback from these people for our final reading.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve Article 5C9, vehicle use standards as a first reading. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you.
Thanks for your feedback, board members. That's awesome. Appreciate it.
I'll turn the time over to Superintendent Horsley for his report.
Just have a brief report tonight. Had some opportunity to visit with Representative McPherson and Senator Reeby in recent days and had some good meetings and some collaborative conversation. I want to thank them for their time going into the next legislative session. I also had an opportunity to start teaching my government class again this morning at Granger High School. And I just want to say that it was the highlight of my day. The rest of the day sucked completely after that, except for this board meeting. It's incredible. But it's good to be with kids. And shout out to Omar for having the same favorite song as me. And we had a good discussion there. I also want to just reiterate what an incredible experience it was to be part of that Moana Junior, to witness that production. After going backstage with to meet the cast with Nicole and Chris, I couldn't talk. It was so emotional.
We were emotionally compromised.
We were, and the teacher, that I could not even go talk to her because I'm like, I just can't. It was so incredible. And I just want to say, with respect to that I don't think that happens without public education. I think that's why what we do here is so important. And that's not to denigrate other options that our parents might want to choose, but to have that come together in the way that it did in such a beautiful fashion is because of what we have to offer.
Superintendent Clark?
Just a couple quick items for me tonight. I got some positive feedback over the break about having our semester end prior to the holiday break. So if there's some not so positive feedback out there, I'd like to hear that as well. But all that I heard was positive, so I thought I would report that to the board. And then secondly, and notwithstanding Kim kind of preempting some of my comments about the oath that some of us took tonight, I just wanted to reiterate how seriously I take that oath and how committed I am to living up to what it stands for and working, as we discussed earlier tonight, to help the students in our district graduate and be prepared for their future in college and careers. Thank you for the opportunity.
Ms. Clark. Karen?
Benefits Committee has not met since our last meeting, so I have nothing to report.
Our budget committee was the same preview we got tonight of the budget, what's coming up for us, so be prepared, everybody. So thanks, Todd, for that. I think our Reflections Awards Night, Region Awards Night is coming up this month. Is that January? I want to say
it's actually, I can report on that because I got notice that I might have a family member attending that
I also
tonight.
have a family
So
member
it's
maybe
actually,
attending.
it's next Tuesday.
Okay, thank you. The 14th, so that's PTA reminder if you guys want to attend the Region Reflections here on the 14th. And then it's
Do you know what time?
6:30, 6:30. And then
6:30,
I
it's
just want to
my
thank board members. Thank you for your support as board vice president for 2 more years. And I appreciate it. And I hope to learn and grow and do better. So thank you.
Parks and Recreation hasn't met either since our last meeting, but there is an email came out from Callista Pearson, who is public relations, and she just announced that Wheeler Historic Farm Winter Market starts this, it started last weekend, and it is open on Sunday, and it goes from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. They have fresh, locally grown produce, handcrafted breads and pastries, local eggs and meat, honey, homemade treats and desserts, and handmade crafts and gifts. So it's at Wheeler Farm, 6300 South and 9th East. So if people want to attend that, that's for the next few months. And that's all.
Thanks, Connie. Kim?
We already mentioned District Community Council, January 28th, 6 p.m. here, and that is all I have.
I threw some notes from our last USBA meeting on board book, so you can go check those out. And I look forward to seeing y'all at the conference this weekend, where board members will go and get lots of training and come together and talk to other board members, which is really valuable too. And yeah, that's it.
Nicole, can I just clarify? So I did look at my email, and it is, the reflection thing is 6:30 next Tuesday. Is my I'm looking at here, right here in the district office, yeah. I don't know what room, but it's somewhere here. Oh, right here, in this very room. There you go.
Okay. Now we're all going to see that.
I didn't even read that, sorry.
Great, Karen. As far as ours, we have a law and policy meeting coming up. We are going to take the bullying policy to District Community Council because we felt like we wanted to have some serious parent feedback on that. So we hope that our District Community Council, our school community councils will send representatives so that we can have some good parent feedback on that as well. And everybody, please make sure that you sign the paper and give it to Stacy before you leave tonight. If you had it, the paper that you had for the travel. With that, I think we are done. I will entertain a motion.
I move we adjourn.
All right, we have a motion, a second to adjourn.
She always looks at me when it's time for the motion to adjourn. Have you noticed that?
It's either me or you.
We have a motion to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Not that I have a problem.